What if there was one question you could include in any serious sales conversation that would dramatically improve your ability to close that business? Hi, I'm Shawn Casemore, and I help sales professionals like you learn how to become top performers so that you can earn more money in less time. If that sounds good to you, make sure you click the subscribe button. You'll be notified each and every time I release a new video. And of course, if you click notifications, you'll be notified of any new uploads that I create. Now, let's get to that question. Before I tell you what the question is, and I know you want to hear it, just bear with me for a second. It's very important that I set this up so you know when to use the question and when not to use the question. So this question is something that you would use during a serious sales conversation. Now, what I mean by serious is that you've covered off all the bases. You've had your discovery discussion with your client or your customer. You've asked questions. They've answered them openly. You've discussed your solution, product or service, how it will benefit them. They've asked questions. They've given you the sense they're interested. And then my suggestion is this question is asked after you've issued a quote or proposal, but before you've attempted to close the business. Okay. Now, you could use this question earlier before you issue a quote or proposal as an assumptive close, and it can still be highly effective. But here is the question. You ready? When would you like to get started? That's it. Now, let me put this into context of the situation that I mentioned. If you follow my teachings relative to sales, you'll know that before you ever issue a quote or proposal, you should book a call or meeting with your prospect. Okay. And this can also be in person. That is something that you say to them, hey, I'm going to send you a quote or proposal. You're going to have some questions, or there's going to be some things that don't make sense to you. Let's book 5 or 10 minutes in your calendar just so I can walk through and highlight a few things to you. How does next Tuesday morning or Wednesday afternoon look to you? So you book that meeting, right, prior to ever sending a quote or proposal, which ensures that you don't get ghosted and never hear from them again once you issue that quote or proposal. It is during that meeting that I suggest you use this question. Now, in some ways, it is an assumptive close. If all the boxes have been checked, they seem interested, they get the value, right? They're asking you questions that suggest they want to move forward. What you want to do is say, let me ask you another question, John. Let me ask you this question, Sarah. When would you propose we get started? Or when would you like to get started? Now, again, that's really an assumptive close, and I recognize that. But oftentimes, during that point at time at which they've seen the pricing, they've seen the quote, and now we're having a dialogue, there's a lot of questions they might have. Here's the other thing I want you to consider. The more questions they have, the better, right? Because it's really them trying to fit your solution into what it is their situation. So a lot of questions are a good thing. But at some point, you just want to test the waters to see if they'd like to move ahead. When would you like to get started? Now, there's only 3 ways they can answer that question. They can say, I don't know, right? I don't know. That's a good answer. They could tell you, well, I want to get started next Tuesday. That's an even better answer. Or they could say, I'm not really sure if we want to move ahead. So you could get a yes, no, or maybe is really what those 3 are. If it's a yes or a maybe, those are positive signs that they do want to move ahead. A yes is pretty clear. Let's pick a date. A maybe, or, we've got some more questions first, that kind of an answer suggests to you that, okay, there's still interest here. I just have to answer some more questions and then come back and repeat that question. Okay. If they say, no, we don't really want to move ahead, now's not the right time. If you get some sort of objection, you handle it as an objection, which I've got lots of other videos on. So make sure you check those out. But back to the point. This question is a question that often gets missed, right? So we have this conversation. It's very positive, and you get the sense they want to go ahead. And they say what? They say, let me think about it. We've got to do some more discussions internally. Let us think about it. So you leave not really knowing where you stand. When you ask, when would you like to get started? Even if they said to you, well, we're not really sure we want to move ahead, you can follow up with, oh no, I understand. Just from a planning standpoint, did you have a month, a week, a day in mind so that I can ensure from our end we're ready in the event you want to move forward? So there's a follow-up question. If they do say, no, not really sure this is for us, right? You're just trying to plan for capacity. You're trying to make sure that when they might want to move ahead, you're ready to go. But this question really forces your prospects to make a decision and commit to you. And if you use that follow-up question, if you're getting kind of a negative vibe, it will allow them to, again, come back to you and say, well, we're not really sure, but we're thinking December. Okay, great. Now you've got something to work with. You get a sense as to when they're planning to move ahead, which allows you to know when they're going to make the decision. So even if they disappear after this meeting, they give you a no, we're not really sure. You ask, well, just from a capacity standpoint, they say, we're thinking December. Let's assume for a moment it's September when you're having this conversation. You know they're going to have to close this by November. So if they tend to ghost you and you're into December, chances are you might have missed the business. On the flip side, if you know you're coming towards December, it allows you to ramp up your activity. Maybe you need to get on a plane and go see them to try and close this thing, to try and give them some confidence, right? So let's back up for a moment. The question is simple. When would you like to get started? When did you plan on implementing this? When would you like this delivered? They're all the same question. You ask this question typically after you've provided them a quote proposal and the conversation's been positive. It's really an assumptive close you're using to try and flesh out if they're ready to move ahead or not. If they say yes, great, book the date, get started. If they say we're not sure, we have some more questions, great, let's discuss those questions, and then you come back and ask it again. If they say, we're not sure, we don't really know if we want to move ahead right now, you just follow up with something such as, completely understand, I'm just wondering from a capacity planning standpoint, when you were initially thinking of putting this into play or taking delivery of this piece of equipment or material, so that we can plan accordingly. Again, they'll likely give you an idea, which again, gives you a sense of, is this a short-term need or a long-term need? So I would suggest that is a question you include in any serious sales conversation. And I can promise you, if you start to ask this and use it almost as an assumptive close, but of course, after there's been plenty of positive discussion and your quote or proposal has been issued, you're going to find that they're going to start to give you an answer. And that answer, even if it's negative, you'll know where you stand, right? The biggest problem in sales oftentimes in serious conversations is we're still not sure are they going to move ahead or not? And when were they planning to do this? So ask the question. Ask the question. You'll be surprised at the answers you get. And worst case, you flush out some objections that needed to be dealt with anyways, right? At least now you know what they are and you can deal with them. So give that question a try. I can promise it's going to improve your closing ratio. Comment below if there's another question that you've used in serious sales conversations that have helped you close the deal. And look forward to seeing you in the next video. Until next time, let's get out there and go sell something. We'll talk to you soon. Take care.